Welcome to the Dagnabbit, boys. It is a November 27th. It is 5:51 or 4:51. Sorry, my watch is wrong. It is 5 days before Cooper is planned to have a rap battle with Eminem.
Yeah.
So far, you have shown me you've only written one rhyme so far, and I'll say it on the podcast if you're fine with it.
Sure.
Yeah, okay. You say, Marshall, you're a little runt. That bitch Haley gonna be an... Oh! I don't know if you know what sort of thing you're walking into.
She's an adult now, though. That rhyme kind of works when she was still a baby, but I think she's older than us.
Well, I don't know why why you picked this particular rhyme, because I mean it's well known Eminem does not stand for people making fun of his child, and also she is older than us.
Yeah.
So, have you written anything different since then? Have you maybe tried to switch it up? I mean, this is going to ruin your life. I hope you know that.
Well, I wrote that to show that I'm like old school. So to show that I'm like an old OG rap head, I always talk about like, man, when Haley grows up, he ain't raising her right. She gonna be on the pole. And people are like, she's like a grown woman. And I think she just has like a regular job.
Yeah.
Was she like big on TikTok for a little?
I don't know.
She might have been like dancing on TikTok. I mean, that's what I would do if you're the son of a daughter of a rich person. You just dance on TikTok.
I mean, I've heard that you're promoting it. You're using it as a promotion. I mean, this is going to tank your album, South Central Trailer Trash.
Yeah, it's the Christmas Came Early Busters promotion.
Yeah.
It's saying y'all don't need to wait for your presents because I'm about to unwrap Eminem on stage.
Yeah, yeah.
And he has agreed to do it on my own turf, which is the Comedy Store Belly Room. We were going to do it at the Lyric Hyperion, but then they read some of Eminem's lyrics and thought that his subject matter did not align with their vision for the venue.
Yeah.
And they would have read some of my lyrics, but I don't have any songs out. I don't rap, and I've never rapped.
Yeah. I mean, you do have this album planned, though. I mean, what's if you don't have any like lyrics? Then...
Well, I have that album, but I just haven't released it yet, and I wasn't going to give them. Lyric asked me to give them some of my lyrics from that album, and I was like, well, no, because if I give them to you, some people could steal my rhymes.
Yeah.
And that album's not out yet, so I can't claim the rhymes if the album's not out. So I'd love to.
Yeah.
But if I give you the lyrics right now, then I'd be at risk of having rhymes stolen.
I'd hate for this to turn into an interview, because it is right. This is our podcast.
But now it's a little bit Nardwuar, verse musician.
Yeah. I do want to ask about your album that's coming out, South Central Trailer Trash. Talks about your story of growing up in Inglewood, in a trailer park. I do want to ask, you're from Northridge, correct?
Woodland Hills.
Woodland Hills.
Yeah.
Why do you say that on the album?
The album, well, because there's where you're from, and then there's, the place that made you.
Yeah.
And so after moving out of my house, I moved into the only trailer park in Inglewood. And I used to get shit on.
You were 21 years old?
Yeah. I used to get shit on by everybody in the projects because I lived in a trailer park in Inglewood.
Yes.
And everybody would be like, this motherfucker's so broke, he don't even live in the projects. He live in a trailer park in Inglewood. And it was like somehow swampy and shit. Even though Inglewood is just, it's just...
I heard there's There's alligators in that park.
Yeah, theirs was gators and crawdads, crickets and rickets and all kinds of things. So, real kind of a Dirty South vibe, but coming out of Inglewood.
Interesting.
And people always hated us for the way we drive our cars and how we, sip mud, and we had, big gold grills and shit like that, because that just wasn't the style in Inglewood back in...
This was 4 years ago?
Yeah, this was 4 years ago.
Yeah.
But back then, that wasn't the style. But, it was sort of a Houston vibe in Inglewood in the year 2021. I lived there for about 2 years, so like 2021 to 2023.
Okay.
Yeah. And I just, I kept saying like, the South has something to say.
Yeah.
And they'd always be, talking all this mess like, motherfucker, you are not from the South. You are not from Inglewood. You are from Woodland Hills, and you parked a van outside of Grape Street talking about, I live in a trailer park, I'm trailer nasty. Because I would walk around in overalls, no shirt, no shoes, and I'd call myself Fuckleberry Finn.
Okay.
Yeah, fuck with me, Finn.
Okay.
And I'd say it as much as he did.
Oh, interesting.
That was my thing.
How is it like working with the producer Bangladesh?
That motherfucker gets on my nerves.
Oh, yeah?
Because he's always like, oh, why don't you do that verse again? You were off beat. And I just go into the studio and I grab him by the hair and I punch him in the back as hard as I can.
That's very interesting. A lot of people have similar stories about Bangladesh.
So the album's bad.
The album's bad?
Yeah, the album's bad. I thought
Is it bad in the colloquial sense, as in good?
No, it's like sonically not good.
Would you say the album's fat?
I mean, there's a lot of different sounds in it.
Yeah.
I had a lot of different people to work on it, and I got musicians and Billy Strings, prominent bluesgrass artist, came in and did some stuff, and I tried to rap over that, and I just couldn't.
I heard you sampled Sun House on your third track.
Yeah, we did
Hillbilly Blues.
Yeah, we did Hillbilly Blues, Death Letter, and then I sampled Grinning in Your Face, but only the clapping parts. If you know that song, it's just him singing and clapping, and the clapping is offbeat, and I tried to rap on that. That sucked too. So that wasn't good either. So I don't know. We tried to do a lot of shit. We did a Shake It and Break It sample from what's that guy's name? Charlie something. It's like a really old song that's like so like grainy sounding. It's almost impossible to sample. So we just sampled the grain, just only the background noise, and I tried to rap over that. So it's just me being like, fuck your bitch in the trailer park, and then you just hear like so it just kind of sounds like I'm in a lot of wind.
Oh, okay.
But it was cool. I mean, we recorded it on top of Mount Wilson.
Okay.
That's like 30 minutes outside of Pasadena. There's an observatory up there.
Mm-hmm.
And so we just drove up there, and I took the mic out of the car. Like, no, so there's a lot of natural wind too, because that's something I wanted.
Oh, yeah.
That was something I wanted, and then I found out later that just doesn't sound good. So it's kind of, you can kind of hear me softly in the background, but most of what you hear is just like, because it's really windy. It's like a tall mountain. I mean, it's an observatory. It was built to raise above the city lights.
And there's a track in particular. It's towards the end. It's an 8 or 9 minute track called "Rapping Against the Wind."
Yeah, so that was kind of me doing a rap battle against the wind.
Yeah,
and when we listened back, because we kind of didn't know who would win until we listened, and the wind won. So honestly, a lot of the songs are.
How are you going to beat Eminem if you can't beat the wind? Is the question everybody wants to know.
My thought is, as my thought was when I punched a guy in an open mic, and as my thought has been my entire life, that if I can't beat a guy with words, I just immediately get physical.
But that's interesting because, I mean, as it said, you were from Woodland Hills. Eminem is from Detroit.
I deny that. I need to see proof.
He's from Detroit, a much rougher area. I mean, a lot of people would think maybe Eminem could probably take you even in his 50s. And
yeah, but he's not from 8 Mile. He's from like 6 Mile, which is like a little bit better than 8.
Oh, that's interesting.
From what I've heard, actually.
Interesting.
So I think he's kind of capping. And honestly, it's just like, I talk is cheap, and people say a lot of shit, but I ain't never seen the deed to his mama's house. And so until I see that, motherfucker could be from...
But you have shown everybody the deed to your parents' apartment in Woodland Hills.
I made that clear. Yeah. Yeah, my dad lived in an apartment off Topanga Canyon. I showed him the deed to that. My mom leased a duplex in Woodland Hills. I also showed him the deed to my childhood house off Cass Avenue. Everybody knows where I'm from. Everybody knows I'm a fucking liar. Everybody knows I'm completely fronting where I am when I say I'm from Inglewood. They know I'm lying. I'm pretty straightforward about that. I've never lied about how much I'm fronting where I'm from. But the thing with Eminem is just, once again, it's like, sure, we got this movie. He's famous. Some people say they know him. Some people say they've seen him. But until I see anything on paper...
And a lot of people in Inglewood have said that they've literally never seen you. They don't know where the trailer park is supposed to be. They call you a liar, and you say yes. It's like track 11, I'm a liar.
I said I drove through it. That's enough.
Yeah.
I said I drove through it, and I said, this place is fucked up.
You said you drove through it and thought of some good areas for trailer parks. You said this is where the white people should live.
I drove through it and I said, this is where I would be, but there's no fucking way I'm staying here. And then I just thought about the history of like racist LA zoning and creating poor communities based on race and trying to disenfranchise people through that. And I wrote a song about that, but...
It's called This Shit Is Good.
Yeah, it's called This Is Great. And it's just me. It's actually not... I didn't write any of the lyrics. I stole the rhymes on that. It's just from a book about the history of redlining in Los Angeles and the creation of places, is all the way down to Skid Row.
Yes.
But, you have different levels of it. Skid Row is where you dump homeless people. Rampart Village was more a neglected area.
Yeah. I do enjoy your track about the homeless situation in Los Angeles. It's
also called
Yuck.
Yeah, it's called Yuck. It is good, though. Yeah, I have that. I have the one track that says the Slauson Red Line was a matter of safety.
Yeah.
I say that. So a lot of people are accusing me of... being an advocate for structural racism.
And they are correct.
And they'd be correct. And I stole my rhymes, and I'm not from Inglewood, and I openly lie about that.
Even though the album is called South Central Trailer Trash.
But, I do still hold it down that Eminem is from Montgomery, Alabama, and he's never been to Detroit. I don't believe it. I'll believe it when I see it, but so far I haven't seen it. And if you ask me, the guy in that movie about him isn't even him. I think that's Carrot Top.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So a lot of people are saying,
all right, Siri is 8 Mile. Is it Carrot Top? I don't have Siri on my phone. That would have been cool if I did, but I do not.
Yeah, you just got Cyrus.
Yeah.
He's just a guy that tells you to shut the fuck up and go make some money.
Yeah, I got Cyrus. He says some racist ass shit to me.
Yeah, Cyrus is saying fucked up stuff. But, yeah, I mean, this whole, venture into rap over the last few months of just stealing rhymes, lying where I'm from, capping on not only my own, but others' names. A lot of people are saying, oh, well, he's so ridiculous, we'll just disregard him.
Mm-hmm.
But I just keep saying shit. Like, when Kendrick's mixtape came out, I was like, I was on the mixtape. I was on it. And you can listen to me in the mixtape.
How would you describe... So when Kendrick released "They Not Like Us," you had a comment on it that was very controversial. You said, "I think pedophilia is good. Kendrick, if you keep talking this shit, I'm gonna beat Haley's ass." Haley is Eminem's child.
Haley has been the vector of most of my anger and emotion because I just don't know where to put it. And as with a lot of men in America, they usually just displace it on women who had nothing to do with it. And I don't really believe in that, but I've just heard that's a thing guys do. And I'm kind of looking for my place in life, so I just fell in line with the history of misogyny. But
so you're very much what people would call a historic. You have a kind of a historic mindset.
I'm a bad guy, yeah. And
yeah.
I more than just a response, I released my own track that said, "I'm the they." I am they. And I spoke from the perspective of they. And
how it's cool to be they.
Yeah, and that got 14 views on YouTube before it got taken down for just, straight up supporting pedophilia. Which once again, I'm capping on because I've never...
You've never met a child.
No, I've never been a pedophile, never will be. I have no sexual attraction to children. But
you're such not a pedophile. You don't remember your own childhood.
No, because I would be, if I had a memory of my childhood penis, and I'd be thinking about some shit that ain't right to think about, so I just don't.
So really, you only say this stuff to get a reaction, to make people feel bad.
Well, in my heart of hearts, I think that what I'm doing is poignant, but it's really all just sort of lowest common denominator, what's the most offensive thing, because I have a rudimentary understanding of what substance actually is.
Okay,
and
interesting.
So I just sort of in a WWE fashion, just the biggest response, I assume, means that I have created something of substance.
Interesting.
And that's how I live. Yeah.
Well, it's. I'm happy to have you on the Dagnabbit Boys podcast. It's been great talking to you.
And the whole thing, I just want to say real quick, the whole thing about me completely lying about being from Inglewood, part of that is just because I don't remember my childhood altogether. So some people are like, you're from Woodland Hills, and I'm like, I don't remember that. They're like,
yes.
You went to Woodland Hills Academy, you went to West Valley Christian School, you went to Taft High School, and I'm like,
yes.
I don't remember any of that.
And during that whole time, you were holding the deed to your childhood home.
When I was saying that, yeah.
Yes.
Because it's like kind of like...
Because you did have to pull it out to show somebody that you were not from Inglewood.
Well, you know how like MF Doom had the mask and that's how people knew him?
Yeah.
People know me by holding the deed to my childhood home, which is in Woodland Hills, California, and now belongs to another family.
Yes.
Yeah, but...
A much nicer family.
Yeah, it's a good family. Good family. I mean, some trouble at some points, but really not enough to justify the level of delusion and anger that I have for myself and the world.
Yeah.
You know, like stuff that's tough but can totally be worked through.
Yeah.
And I just refuse.
I mean, you know, if you really want to be a great artist, sometimes you do have to confront your own demons and then be like, nah.
Sometimes you got to make up your own. Because I pay a lot of money for therapy. I go in every week and I'm like, do you realize I had gunshots outside my window every single night growing up? And, you know, he just believes me because why wouldn't he? It's just like, why would you pay $250 a week to just lie to a therapist? But that's what I do. I go in there and I lie and I'm like, I grew up in an active gang neighborhood. I was part of gangs. I was shot when I was 8. I got turned out. Then I turned some other people out. I was a hoe. I was a pimp. I went from the bottom to the top, straight back to the bottom. And then I realized I'm the king of the bottom. And so,
and the whole time you're holding the deed to your childhood home.
I hold the deed to my childhood home almost everywhere I go. I mean, I put it down because you asked me to, but that shit was tough, to be honest. But yeah, I love to lie. All I do is lie. And I like to lie, especially to strangers, because they don't know me, so they just believe me. You know, I tell people I'm going to pay them back, and then I don't, and they're like, why didn't you pay me back? And I'm like, because I never intended to. I just lied to you so you wouldn't think about it.
Well, recently you told me you'd never been outside of the country, and the whole time you were holding your passport, and you just kept flipping it open.
I would just show you stamps from...
Yeah, you would show me stamps.
From places...
From like...
I've been to.
From like Norway and stuff.
Yeah.
And you would say, I've never been outside of the country, and then you would put it in my face.
Yeah, I'd say I'd never been to Maui, and I'd show you a picture of a family trip I took to Maui as a kid.
Yeah.
And so I like to lie and then just directly show evidence of the lie.
In a way, you're probably the greatest truth teller in America. Well, I say greatest as in the most, but not greatest as in the best, because you're clearly one of the worst.
I want to be clear, I'm the only one with evidence.
Yeah.
Every rapper just says stuff, and people are like, well, why would he lie? And then I lie, and then I show evidence of my lying, and then people still kind of wonder why I lied, but they know I lied.
Yes.
So then there's no illusion to anything.
Well, it's like when Nas said that he had the gun on the he had a gun, and then Jay-Z let everybody know he does not.
I wrote that lyric. I wrote Illmatic.
Did you?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure you were not born when that album was recorded.
I wasn't. So that's the kind of stuff I do. The thing is, if you lie and then you directly show that you lied, in a way, you're kind of always completely honest, and there's really nothing to doubt or wonder at that point.
Oh, yeah.
But me and Nas still kick it, even though we've never met, and that's how I live my life.
Oh, interesting.
I don't give a fuck, you know? You don't have to give a fuck. Everybody's obsessed with some kind of honesty and truth.
Mr. Sir, can I borrow a Zin?
You can. I dip them in wet.
Are you wet right now?
Yeah, I smoke wet every day, but I started dipping Zins and embalming fluids so I can get like a chiller high with it.
Oh, interesting.
Just so it's not too crazy of a high.
Yeah. Okay. I've heard you say that you've gotten so wet that you chewed a cop's face off. And then they interviewed the cop, and he's like, my face is right here.
I have no criminal record.
Yeah.
I have no criminal record. I have been to prison, but I have no criminal record. So that's the stuff I do. And I just don't care. Because why would I care? So, you know, I don't know.
Anyway, it's thanks for tuning in to the interview with Bug Money, the rapper from Inglewood, who is actually from Woodland Hills.
I went to Cal State Northridge, but I also ain't never had no schooling.
Yeah.
I ain't never had the chance.
Yeah, so you can check out his rap battle with Eminem. It'll be December 2nd.
Yeah, did you ever see that one? I forgot the thing, but it's the thing where they take. I think it's Rap Genius, where they take a rapper's lyrics and then they interview him and they ask him to explain the lyrics.
Yeah.
And they had the one kid who was probably only like 17, and he seems like a nice guy. and they go through his lyrics, and it's like, I got I got so many Glocks and so many switches, and he just immediately is like, I do not own a gun. And then he's like, I got switches on bitches, and he's like, I don't have any bitches. He's like, I have a girlfriend, and that's just a lie. And you're like, I mean, I don't think he was that famous to begin with. I think he made his career worse just because he was completely open about lying. He was literally lied on like every bar of his song, where he was like, I just said that to be cool. He's like, I do not.
I am an artist.
And he's like, one lyric's like, I'm at the club. He's like, I never go to the club. And he's like, I like to stay in. I watch TV with my girlfriend. He's like, I'm like a nice guy. And it's like, I kind of respected him because he was just completely like...
He's just like, I really like rap music.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, his only answer was like, yeah, I like rapping, and that's kind of what people want to hear, and I just don't have any of those experiences, so I just lie about having those experiences.
Yeah.
And it's just like, well, all right, well...
Well, it is funny because it is like with rap, it's like if you wrote a novel about that sort of stuff and people liked it, nobody would be like, you didn't go through this shit.
Yeah, rap is kind of the one thing where people really want it to be real.
Yeah. Because people have gotten killed over rap.
Yeah, I guess it's the only...
Regularly.
It's the only music that, like, the bars are, like, really critiqued.
Yeah.
Where, like, I mean, yeah, that doesn't happen in, like, rock at all. I mean, I guess just because rock was just so, like, blatant. It would be funny to...
No, yeah, School was not out. School was not out at all.
You wrote that before School was out. It would be very funny to critique, like, Elvis's lyrics, just to be like, you didn't love her. You did not feel nervous around her.
You are nothing but... You are a hound. You're a hound dog. You're not a hound dog.
You are not a hunk of burning love.
I'm sorry, Mr. Elvis.
No. You could not feel your temperature rising. That is not true. Her kisses did not lift you higher. You are completely capping on the romance that you felt for your big time gal.
Yeah.
That's completely not true. You have no burning love. And
Or we critique the Beatles.
And he's like, I swear to God. I swear to God.
You are not from Memphis.
You are not the Elephant Man. You are not you as you are as we are all together. You're not. That's not true. You're capping on that.
You are not. Yeah. Well, we should lie on the pod. I'm on fire right now.
Yeah. Should we just lie a lot? Should we just, like, come in and be like, man.
Our weekend was crazy. We went into the club. Somebody started shooting. Somebody started shooting. I dodged the shit like the Matrix. And I capped his ass. All the bitches want to come on with me. I had a 12-some.
That would be so sick. We come in every week so excited and just completely lie. Where we're like... Yeah, so this weekend was crazy. I bought a gray Bentley, and then I smashed it, and then I bought a red one, and everybody's like, that's a Pimp C lyric. That's literally from International Players Anthem. And I'm like, no, I smashed up the gray one.
We're describing plots to movies.
Yeah, no, but
you seen that movie Armageddon? That shit straight up happened to us.
That shit straight up happened. Man, it was so crazy. I was having this dream, but then I died in the dream, and I died in real life. It was some crazy shit, to be completely honest. But
there was this clown, but it was the town, man. Shit was crazy, man.
Yeah, it was so crazy. There was this
My little brother died and shit. Got killed by the clown, who's also the town.
It was so crazy when we were hanging out with that clown, but the clown was more a manifestation of fear and stuff. It was absolutely ridiculous. Oh, my God. Yeah.
There was so much metaphor happening in our weekend.
Oh, how was my winter? I spent it as the caretaker of a hotel with my family. That's how it was. But I found out
froze to death.
But I found out that I'd been dead kind of the entire time, and I'd just been an apparition living in hell of some sorts. You want to hear about that?
Oh yeah, and also my whole winter was an allegory for the Native American plight. You better believe it,
man. Let's be clear. I'm straight up Forrest Gump. Let's just be honest. I did grow up in the South. I did play football. I did go to Alabama. I did go to Vietnam, and I did well.
People are asking who framed Roger Rabbit.
Me.
My ass.
My ass
framed Roger Rabbit.
My dumb ass framed Roger Rabbit. Yeah, this is a crazy weekend. I put on a mask, and it just made me go crazy. I call that whole weekend the mask. But that's how it was. You know what I mean?
Oh, I could not lie. Shit was nuts.
Yeah.
I love to lie, and I could not lie the whole week because my son made a birthday wish.
Yeah, I had a crazy weekend. I had a gang initiation where I had to rape and kill a woman, and then I found out that woman was my mom. It was actually pretty. People are like, why would you lie about that? Why would you want... That's that horrible song that makes everybody so sad, and nobody knows why it was written and hopes it's not true.
I listen to that song like probably once a week.
Really?
Yeah.
Actually?
Yes.
Oh, God.
It's so funny to me.
I can't remember what is the name of the song in the artist?
Dance with the Devil.
Is that supposed to be true? Does the guy that wrote that say that
I
that's
don't think it's supposed to be true.
I mean, if that's... Well, you can't say you did that if you didn't get caught for it. That would be
Yeah.
crazy. Could you imagine that's like... sometimes...
Well, so he says, I was with Billy, and I raped his mom, too. But,
it's like a guy... It's another guy? I thought it was a guy that did it himself.
No. He's supposed to be... At the end of the song, he reveals he was there.
God.
But he wasn't. He just made it up.
Yeah,
he was just like, what's the most fucked up shit I can write about that's talking about what New York hood life is like?
I saw a comic the other day tell like an obviously fake story, and I knew it was obviously fake just because they said they had a joke where they were like, I got like free food for Veterans Day, and they like told this whole story, and they're like, it was fucking crazy. And then like our friend Peter was like, oh, that's happened to me before. And then the guy's reaction was like, wait, what? Like, to the same exact story he just told, he was like, you actually did? That's crazy. And it was just like, damn, you kind of told on yourself.
You played yourself.
Yeah, like you completely made up that story. It's like, it seemed pretty obvious that you made up this story just the way he was telling it. And then when Peter was like, oh, I've done... And to Peter's defense, he accidentally stole valor. He just used to look like a military guy, and people would be like, thank you, and he would just, I don't know. But, like, he wasn't...
Peter always says, I'm middle class, and it's like, no, cuz, you are not.
He acts too cool.
Yeah, there's no way. There's no way you could be that comfortable around gang members and be...
I don't know, I mean, you gotta... Big shouts out to Peter. He's a real enigma, He's, like, Arab, but he's also a down-ass, Mexican-ass fool. Who I don't think is Mexican at all.
Yes, no, absolutely not.
So in that way, it's like he could be middle class and then also just be...
I mean, you can be like a middle class person of a different race, but also just have the same sort of coolness.
It's just crazy to be like on paper none of the things Los Angeles Mexican gangster is, but to still be a Los Angeles Mexican.
They're just like, you're basically
just to be cool enough to hang out with them. You know what I mean? That's awesome.
Well, they probably just see it as like, you're the same.
Yeah, it's like, well, that's the thing about like...
What you are isn't true, but how you are is true. You know?
And I feel like gang members are kind of funny because they act like they have very strict rules, but it's also like, but we like this guy a lot.
Yeah.
And technically, us hanging out with him would kind of break some of our rules of only hanging with our own kind. But Peter's great.
Yeah.
And he is great. He's a great guy to hang out with. I understand
he's the best.
Why,
Shout out to Peter. I ran a mic with him for 2 years.
Yeah.
And then I had to give it up because I moved on to greener pastures. I moved on to
the world famous comedy
store where I take out the trash.
Yeah, you have to take out the trash so you can't host an open mic.
Yes. Yeah, sorry, man. There's a lot of trash today.
Yeah. I had a good conversation with my dad today because I've been trying to figure out like if my issue is with depression or my issue is just with like having ADD and living a disorganized life where I'm inefficient that then makes me feel bad about myself and all the negative self-talk coming from just like a foundational issue of like not having an organized life. It's really interesting talking to my dad because I think I'm just exactly my dad where he was like, yeah, I have like impulsive ADD. So it's like you're bored. And then you will tend to use substances because you have a lower level of dopamine. So you're kind of bored and jittery and anxious a lot. And so then you'll use substances to like up your level of dopamine just to kind of feel normal. So that's when you start using substances on like a medicative level or whatever.
Have you ever thought of turning into Cooper the comedy therapist? Where it's like that's your whole act, is you're also a therapist. So you get to keep doing comedy. You don't have to abandon it. But you're just Cooper the comedy therapist.
So it's like crowd work, but therapy?
Yes.
It does seem hard to make that funny. But maybe it's not.
You're like, somebody tells you about some fucked up shit that happened in your childhood, and you're like, let's be real. You have a little dick, and that's why you're sad.
Yeah. Well, it does sound like a surefire way to ruin the fun. You know what I mean?
Well, that's why with anything in comedy, you just have to work at it.
Like you're doing crowd work. And
the thing is, you're not going to get fired from doing fallouts.
Sure. But like you're talking to a guy and he's just like, yeah, man, I keep tabs on all my girlfriends. I'm like, okay, so yeah, you have like an anxious attachment style in relationships, but you also have like a deep insecurity. And so you're like supplementing kind of a bunch of masculinity to sort of like put a cover over the insecurity to act like, well, I'm not doing this because I'm insecure. I'm doing this because I'm a man. And then you add these kind of fake rules of like, well, what men do is have control of stuff. And that way you can view your sense of control not as a weakness and an insecurity and a need for control, but as just sort of the duty of a man and you fulfilling your duties, which then makes you feel fulfilled. But really you don't, because you're fulfilling what is in and of itself a false premise to cover up your own insecurities. And then that's like the end.
And the end is going to be like, also, why are you sitting in the front row with them shorts on? Mm-hmm. Them some tight-ass shorts. Mm-hmm. Are you trying to get some pussy from the comics up here with them tight-ass shorts?
Because I'm about to give you some.
Yeah.
Because I'm about to give you some man
pussy. Do you think, like, so there's all these crazy crowd work videos on, they get popular. I feel like a lot of those audience members are just lying about what they do. They'll be like, yeah, I fucking take a shit and they pay me for it. And the comics are like, what?
Yeah. You think they're plants or the audience members are just choosing to lie?
I think the audience members are just choosing to lie. I mean, there's probably plants for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I saw one recently where a guy was like, I'm a cocaine dealer. And it's just like, I don't know why you'd say that.
Yeah.
And even the comic was like, that's a crime, you know? And it was like a good clip, but it is the kind of thing where you're like, is any of this real? Because it's like, it is very funny. But is this all just a lie?
I think all the heckler, like, what's that guy's name?
Oh, Steve
Hofstetter.
Yeah.
Those are all fake.
Yeah, he's the original. And yeah, he was totally planning. I think even now he might openly admit to planning stuff.
Yeah, he moved out of Pittsburgh, I think.
Motherfucker had to take a tour bus with all his plants.
He tried to do a thing where he was trying to build up the comedy scene in Pittsburgh by doing like an art, like how they used to pay artists, you know, just to live.
Okay.
That's
cool.
I mean, I feel like that sort of stuff doesn't really work if it's not just the government doing it.
Yeah, I think he's also like a big leftist guy. Like when I've seen his material, it's like deeply like leftist, pretty serious political stuff, which I found interesting. Because I think, honestly, no, you know what I remember is like, he was a guy I'd seen before I kind of started comedy, and then before, like, there was, I guess what you would, like, the 2016 post-Trump people being very political. And then I saw his crowd work again, and then it was like, woke comic destroys racist heckler.
Yeah.
So he, like, did the same thing he's always been doing, but then just added, like, political virtues to the whole thing.
I think he might have used to be a Valley guy.
Kind of makes sense.
He seems like, I don't know if I'm, like, just being at Corbin Bowl and shit, where I'm like, I could see this guy just being one of those old guys that hangs out there.
He's just one of those comics that just seems to have operated kind of on the periphery.
Yeah.
Where it's like, I don't think he was ever like a regular.
Which is where you go. The Valley's where you go if you're that guy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's a lot of those guys up in the Valley, and they have families and shit.
Yeah, but even a guy like him, it's like you make like $100,000 a year touring, but like you don't necessarily have like peer respect.
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of comics who, like, for better or worse, are just kind of like, well, fuck all these other comics. They're all losers. And then they'll do like corporate gigs, or they'll do like a certain specific, very marketable type of comedy, and then like tour in B clubs and make a bunch of money. And sometimes you look at them and you're like, yeah, am I just trying to make losers like me?
Yeah.
Because this guy seems pretty smart, actually, like objectively. I don't always love the work they do on stage, though. I think that's where they get caught up.
Yeah.
But if they love, I mean,
unfortunately, you and me are the type of comics that have to hate those guys.
Yeah, and I wish we could stop. But
yeah, but we have to.
We have to. I think it's
because we're doing the type of comedy that makes no money.
Yeah.
It makes no money until it makes a lot of money, but then there's like a 1% chance it'll make a lot of money.
Yeah, there's almost zero. But because like with them, I think they're looking at comedy very mathematically.
Yeah.
Where it's like, what kind of comedy could I do that is accessible, but that is also very interesting, and then can be made into clips? I mean, because that guy with the Destroys Heckler, he was doing that in like 2007.
Yeah.
He was like doing that before Instagram clips, crowd work was a thing. Like, he's like kind of the original in all of that sense. I mean, Dane Cook would post stand-up online, I think, or he was kind of known as the purveyor of that. But you do have to give it up to Steve Hofstadter for like literally probably now a consistent 20 years of crowd work clips.
One thing I noticed immediately after I moved out here, and I was telling people, is it's like, well, the part of the reason it's important to move to places like New York or LA is you're around people that have that crazy business sense, where it's like they may not be the funny. I mean, they definitely aren't the funniest guy there, but they have like this just fucking shit in their brain that they know how to turn that shit into a profit.
It makes you think. I mean, yeah, there's comics that like started like a couple years ago. And we've talked about this. I think especially comics starting in the last 2 years, their first lesson is like post clips.
Yeah.
So it's like they just immediately do that. They build a faster following. They have and once again, it's very mathematical, which if you think about it, if you just start comedy, you're going to write simpler jokes.
Yeah.
And then if you're also immediately in a clip-oriented mindset, all the jokes you're writing are just sort of like, I think even when you're just alone sitting at the notebook, you're thinking like, okay, I'm writing clips right now.
Yeah.
Like practically. I'm not really even thinking about like the audience that's going to hear this. It's like, let me get like 2 identity-based words. You know what I mean? Like I'm this kind of guy. This is my political leaning, or I'm autistic, or something like this. And then we'll do some crowd work with it, and I'll call somebody weird, and then the comments are like, I love how even though you're a whatever at this point, you can still do this, and then you have the following. You immediately make people relate to you. And what we're doing is just horrific.
Oh, yeah.
It's relatable, but in a very subtle way. And when it does relate, it relates deeply, but in a way that even the people that relate to it can't necessarily describe.
The way the people that relate to it go up to us and they're like, man, dark humor.
That's
the only way they know. They're like, oh man, I love dark humor. It's like I don't
sucks.
think I don't want to be doing that. I am not trying to be Anthony Jeselnik.
Yeah, it does. I love Anthony Jeselnik, but
one of the funniest guys,
one of the best. It does suck that, I was talking about that with my friend Dan, is like, I never intentionally want to be known as an edgy or dark comic. But then you work really hard to try and write the most honest material that you can, and then all people do is just try and figure out what box you can fit in, and there's only like 4.
Yeah.
So it's like if you're just talking about like, like your childhood that wasn't great, or like some way that I'm feeling mentally that's negative, people are like, oh, so you work blue.
Yeah.
You're like, I really just want to be known as a guy that's just sort of trying to speak honestly.
Yes.
But that is kind of dumb to think that people would, because when would you ever get that compliment of somebody being like, oh, that was really, sometimes you do, and it's great.
The only people that have ever given me compliments like that are black women.
Israel Adesanya, I think, said I was raw. So that's what's up.
Okay.
I am the fighter's comic. I do have to bring that up every few episodes on the podcast.
I will say people that work like in fields like that would probably appreciate us,
UFC fighters?
Yeah, guys like that.
Yeah, I mean, they appreciate me. I'm the fighter's comic. Israel Adesanya came to the Comedy Store, liked my set. Yeah, I think they see us and they're just like...
he probably heard you talking about Israel and he thought you were talking about him, and he's like, that guy was brave.
He's also super free Palestine, so I think, honestly, my Israel jokes, he was like, hell yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, you have to, with most comedy, it takes like a couple words, usually not making people laugh. Just the fact that you would speak about a topic is what makes people like you. Yeah. And then you notice that with people's fans, where they're like, I love them because they talk about blank. Very often do comedy fans say like, oh, he's so funny. They say like, oh, I love him because they talk about being a school teacher. And then other comics are like, why the fuck would you care about that? Yeah. Because I'm not laughing. But it's like, well, yeah, that's not how people relate to other people. Yeah. Most people, people don't relate to other people just by being like, they're funny, so they matter to me. It's like identity and stuff, which makes total sense. And if you're doing it mathematically, then figuring out exactly what group you represent and like shoving that down people's throats is the best way to do it.
I remember I was walking around thinking I'm the Eminem of comedy, and it's like only 2 people said that. Only 2 people.
2 people have said that to you?
Yeah.
That's a lot of people to say that. That's a staggering amount of that. I can't believe anybody said that. It's very funny. I mean, it's very funny that you said only 2, where it's like, I don't even know what a high number would look like. I think it is 2. If somebody said, like, man, you're not the Eminem of comedy, only 2 people have said that. Like, that's crazy. It's like, I'm not the John Prine of comedy, only 2 people have said that to me. It's like, that's a very specific thing to say.
But yeah, John Prine, though, is not as, like, mainstream.
I guess, but either way, it's still a very, to take a musician.
Multiple people have told me that they I've been told by a couple people that they think I've never seen 8 Mile, but they're like, you remind me of the white people that hang around Eminem.
Yeah, you have a bit of an 8 Mile extra vibe.
Yeah,
I guess. I mean, you got a backwards Adidas hat. You know what I mean? Maybe you don't know where you got it.
I bought it.
Okay, that's what's up. You bought that with some money you made hoeing people out.
Yes, yeah. I was selling fentanyl, and I bought this hat.
Yeah, you learn a lot from other people.
It's crazy it's a Thanksgiving episode. I thought we were going to talk more about the genocides and shit, but I don't really feel like we were more feeling that Eminem riff.
I mean, yeah.
The Eminem riff was pretty funny.
Listen.
The whole riff about you being a rapper.
But yeah, other people are a big reflection of you. I was talking about that in therapy today. Like when I stayed in a cabin with Dylan Sullivan for 3 months in the pandemic, it was really only me and him speaking to each other for 3 months straight. And I think most people have never had that experience where when all of what you are and all your emotions and everything you say and do is reflected off of one single person, it becomes a kind of therapy because you learn how they react to stuff. And then you say stuff and you see their reaction. And then when you learn more about them, you learn more about yourself because you see it reflected back on you. And you have to remember, it's not a normal mirror. It's a mirror with all the edges of their experiences.
Yeah.
So it's not just objective because they're a whole person too. But it is like, I think could be a type of therapy of just like isolating with one person. And that's what, you think about that in relationships because it's like people get in fights and they think that they each have their own side and that one side will win. When really, it's like if you listen to what the other person is mad at you about, if you don't think about winning or losing, you'll learn more about yourself.
Yeah.
And be able to see how you actually interact with other people and what your actions mean to other people. And you often learn that you mean a lot more to other people, that other people have deeper emotions than you ever give them credit for, And that second one's embarrassing to say, but if you're acting with anxiety and you're being self-centered, then you're not giving enough people's credit for their entire life and experiences and emotions and things that can come into play, It's interesting how people just sort of shrug off the thoughts that other people have. Yeah. 'Cause other people are all you have, It's like, that's like what I was thinking about, like monks. And I don't want to shit on monks because I think, sure, there's a lot to be gleaned from meditation and learning.
Lighting yourself on fire.
But a monk is somebody who's just stayed in the same place with the same people. And they shrug off relationships because they're like, relationships aren't good. But it's like, if life is all an attempt and it's a zero-sum game and there is no afterlife, which is mostly the way I think. I mean, I'm mostly agnostic about that. But I'd say if I had to lean one side, that's the side. Then to sit in a monastery is like a completely wasted life. Yeah. Because the only real knowledge is the knowledge gained from experience, where it's like stuff from books, and especially like an informational book, is what it is. It's just information.
Well, you have to use it as a what's it called? Dialectic, You got to in your brain you have to synthesize the information with your own experience and your own perspective and then create and then shape it into something different. Which if you just read a book and then they're just like, well, this is what I think, then you're just not using.
Well, that's kind of what I'm saying. There's a lot of like self-assuredness in a monk's words.
Yeah.
And they speak very sure of themselves and they say this is what life is. And I think it's just often because they never read a book, take that thought, go out in the world, and then see that thought completely not align with somebody else's or an interaction they have or just an experience that they exist through. Because if the experience is always static of just sitting in a monastery all day, then, I have somewhat of a lack of respect for what they do, because what I notice is it's mostly just an avoidance of pain, an avoidance of effort, an avoidance of suffering. And yet they talk so much about life being suffering when it just seems like they don't actually have to live life to the extent almost anyone else does. Like that's my issue.
They do hang out with other monks, but then other monks are just exactly the same as them.
They know as much as them.
Yeah.
They're all completely kind of the same guy. And, I was also thinking about this because it's like, I was talking to somebody and they were saying like, the monks can't have women in the monasteries and they can't touch women. And it's like, well, it's the
opposite of a club.
It seems to me that their beliefs are really fragile and their belief is really fragile and their commitment is really fragile if touching a woman is a complete threat to the entire thing.
Yeah.
Where it's like, if your thinking is so strong, if your beliefs are so strong, if your practice is so strong, the presence of a woman should not distract you completely from all the work you're doing. And it's like they just make these rules where it's just like, you can't have them around. You can't do this. You can't do that.
Yeah.
And a guy who's not a monk, an equivalent of that is a guy who shies away from relationships, shies away from putting effort into himself, and shies away from making an effort at life in the fear of failure. And yet it's seen as a virtue by monks. And I just don't see it. It's like we respect them because they deny all of life.
Yeah.
But I think the attempt at trying to find your place within it is much more respectable. I respect a guy who is divorced, has children, has worked different jobs, has built a career, has experienced pain and loss and brought himself back from all those things in a place like New York City or something surface level like that. And all the while is still able to retain empathy. I'm not saying anybody. A lot of people are bogged down by the incidentals of life and they get trapped in it. But people that can move through it, glean things from it, and then get a higher perspective, I think is way more respectable than somebody who's been sitting at the top of a mountain for 40 years.
Yeah.
Because what are the ups and downs of that? You're creating all of them. You're just getting, meditation is hard. Solitude is hard. I understand that. But is it really harder than trying to build a home with somebody? I don't think so. I don't know.
I think the attempt is to free yourself from the traps of ego.
Well, and that's also,
which is I don't know how I feel about that.
But I feel like also, and I don't love this perspective because it seems a little one-sided, but it's like the monk's perspective, I think a lot of monks, at least Buddhist monks, is that life is an eternal cycle of suffering that you escape through the practice of meditation. And that irks me because I find that to be a very pessimistic, kind of almost nihilist, sad, life-hating mentality. Because what it's saying is that life is horrific and awful and it's terrible and it's something to be escaped from. And so they go to a monastery to meditate in the hopes that when they die, they will not be reincarnated back into what they consider to be a hellish existence, when there is no facts or evidence to support that claim. So they're betting on that. So they believe it only because they want to believe it and because it feels right to them. So what I see is a lot of people at the top of a mountain who are very pessimistic and kind of hate life and are saying life is horrific and are betting on this cycle of reincarnation being true to escape it. And if they're wrong, what they're doing is taking the only chance they ever have to be alive and spending it in denial of life itself in order to get as far as they can away from it, when the whole time they could be sitting there until one day they die and then nothing ever happens again and that's it. It's a pretty big bet to make. And to believe...
It is funny to go from being a monk where you have no stimuli to being dead where you have no stimuli. You're just dead the whole time.
Because if what we believe, maybe not to rope you in, but if what I believe is that, chances are when you die, we're just physical and then you die and then that's death and then there is no you forever. I mean, your body exists and, your bugs eat you and that's great. The physical afterlife, I think, is a beautiful thing. If you take away the spirit, I think it is beautiful that we live and we're just the creation of our brain functioning. And when the brain dies, we get eaten by bugs and we contribute to something in a very physical, understandable, fact-based, true way. I think you can completely appreciate that. And I find a lack of appreciation for it. But I just think it's odd because it's like to believe in reincarnation with zero evidence of it means you really have to, the one thing you do believe is that life is horrific. All those guys hate life. They think life is horrible, that it's the worst possible thing, that to exist is to suffer.
Yeah.
And then it's like, well, what is the difference between that and a fucking depressed guy who says life is fucking horrific and I want to kill myself? It's like, what is really the difference? The actions are different, but the core belief, to me, seems very similar. These men seem very pessimistic. They hate life. They think women are distractions. And all of this, and it just seems like a complete negation of any attempt at going into life and trying to find something. And through the ups and downs, understanding that there is no good and bad, there's only experience and learning, and if you act with love and care, that you can glean something from everything.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much, it's like, I don't know. That's what I'm saying about a relationship, where it's like a tense moment in a relationship or even a fight is such an opportunity to grow and to learn about yourself via what is being reflected to you from another person that you care about, you know?
I guess it is like, it's a, the conflict is, I guess, is between whether or not you believe in a spirit as a nourishing thing, I guess.
What do you mean by that?
I think just monks just inherently believe that there is something that is they're rejecting outside things as a it's almost kind of an experiment, you know?
Yeah. Okay.
A very long experiment.
Yeah, and it really is an experiment. And I guess, yeah, it's like that is the disagreement between me and monks.
Yes.
It's like they just believe a completely fundamentally different understanding of what we are in the universe and what
so monks are clowns.
I don't think they're
versus
clowns.
They're clowns and we're stand-ups.
But we believe completely different things. And it's very interesting what those beliefs will make you do.
I have heard that you are going on a you're going to be rap battling a monk.
Yeah.
As part of your thing.
Well,
you will be traveling to Asia to rap battle a monk.
It's going to be a rap battle and then a debate, because he's saying that stuff like, you know, a romantic relationship is a distraction against like the higher forms of thought. And I'm like, well, and you know, I'm going to say like, well, how you going to say pussy ain't worth none when you ain't never got some?
Oh, okay.
You know, that's kind of my thing. It does seem like, you know, there's a, I mean, I really hate to say this, but there seems like a bit of a childish confidence within monks to be like, that's actually bad. And it's like, that's something you've never done. Isn't that weird? You know what I mean? Like the way they talk about relationships when they have abstained fully from romance or sex. The Dalai Lama is an interesting guy because he gets chosen from birth and then is raised and given books and pampered, kept in a monastery. And then he goes on speaking tours.
I am interested in sin as people understand it, you know? Because I feel like if you don't sin, then you have kind of a lower understanding of it than somebody that has and then has given up on it.
And also, yeah, and I think if you are somebody that says you don't sin, it kind of sounds more like you're denying your capability to sin, when really you do.
Yeah.
You do sin. We all sin.
To be alive is to sin.
I think to say I do not sin would be a sin.
Yeah.
You know, it's a false premise. Because
but I don't think of it as terms of somebody thinking they don't sin, as somebody just taking life as this is bad, so I'll never do it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean...
And it's like, it's not as... I don't think it's as cut and dry as that, you know?
Yeah, and we've talked about that, of like the people who have only made the right decisions the entire time, who have like abstained from, you know, drugs and alcohol and, went to college and got a good job and eat at highly reviewed restaurants and, you know, don't try new places too much, aren't very spontaneous, are organized, structured, thoughtful, and prepared. When you speak to them, they don't have much to say.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, not to fucking throw out a John Lennon quote, but I you know, it's like when he says life is what happens when you make plans. You know, it's like if everything is so perfect and you've planned everything correctly and everything's gone to plan, then well, have you really lived at all? Because you've kind of only lived in the future the entire time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You've just been like, we're going to do this, 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 and this. And then you finish your day and you go, we got all the things done. So the day was a success.
Yeah.
And really, what if the day was a success because you decided to, hey, I'm going to stop and get ice cream, and on, you know, after you park, you get outside, old lady drops her bags, you pick it up, then you have a human moment. You know what I mean? It's like stuff like that, where it's like you weren't supposed to get ice cream because ice cream is unhealthy, but on the way to the ice cream, you helped another person and you rejuvenated your belief in the human spirit or whatever.
Yeah.
Or, you know, even a worse version of that is like you were a horrible drug addict and you stole from people for 15 years and then you rehabilitated and you looked back on those experiences and you were finally able to understand why those things are bad. And I think a guy that has stolen has a better understanding of why stealing is so bad than somebody who's never stolen.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I don't understand why, like, beating the fuck out of somebody is so horrible, because I never have. So I'm able to fantasize and to be like, you know, And that's always the thing, is guys being like, oh, I'll shoot a motherfucker. It's always a guy that's never shot anybody.
Yeah.
That's why, like, combat veterans who have been in combat oftentimes don't brag about it.
Yeah.
Some do. It's a way that some people cope with PTSD. There are outliers, but for the most part, people that have killed a person in war do not like to brag about it because they know that when you do that, it's just a small sound going through a head, and then they see a guy drop in a way that they didn't expect, and then they realize that's what it looks like when a life is over. And it's not a movie.
It's not a movie. It's pathetic.
It's pathetic.
It looks absolutely pathetic, and it makes you think about your own death.
And you're pathetic because that's how you're going to die, and you did that to somebody.
Yeah.
And it was such an anticlimactic action, and that anticlimax is the death of a father, of a son, a brother. An entire household is now ruined by something that looked pathetic.
Yeah.
And you experienced it, and you realize that all these bombastic things that people talk about, like, I'm going to kill that motherfucker, when you've really done it, everything is just kind of like a leaf dropping from a tree, and it's really nothing to brag about. And even worse than that, you've ended a life, and you carry that grief with you. And so it's like, that's what I'm saying with, like, the monks is like, what is knowledge without experience? And I'm not saying you have to do all the horrible things. Like, I think I know death is killing somebody's wrong to the extent I need to.
Yeah.
I don't need to do that. I don't endorse any kind of negative actions. If there's any 11-year-olds listening, which I know is most of our fan base, don't go
the majority. Yes.
Don't go out and do bad things for the sake of doing bad things. I think people that live bad lives, you get caught up in that. You build a brain functioning that makes you, you have proclivities towards certain things, and then you end up in this life. But if you're able to rise out of that rise is everything.
Yeah.
It makes you into something. And it's the rise that then covers you with grime that you can come up and then you have an understanding of.
Yeah, you can't take a shower if you're not dirty.
Yeah, and the guy that's clean, what does he have to say about the grime?
Yeah.
And he doesn't realize the grime is kind of the glue that holds everything together. Because it's experience. When I say grime, it's not just bad stuff. It's good stuff. It's everything. It's going, and it's the attempt. I believe fully in the attempt. That it's, if you're born with nothing, and if you die with nothing, then there is no accumulation of really anything in life. And so even the knowledge that you gain is just sort of something you're doing. So it's not about having anything or gaining anything or holding on to anything. It's about just having done it, And I will say, but while you are still here, the knowledge that you gain will help you in your continued attempts. But everything is just an attempt, and nothing really leads to anything. It's just the fact that you're moving is what matters. And so when people are just trying to live a structured, safe life, or even all the way to sitting into a monastery, I don't understand, because there's no movement. Mm-hmm. There's no motion there. It's just a still, it's like you sit in a still lake the whole time and you just don't really understand anything about the ocean, I don't know. And people, the same way somebody who's never been in combat will say, oh, I'd love to be in war. I think they speak with the same confidence as a monk that can say relationships are completely not worth it when they've never been in a relationship, And it's just sort of like, you got to go do stuff. I mean, the best writers in the world are people that live interesting lives.
Yeah.
That's why, as stand-up comics, it's important for us to not only be stand-up comics, but, to read a lot like you do, to go to new places, to travel, to be open to meeting new people, to live with some kind of open heart and an optimism and an acceptance of life and the ups and downs of it, so you can have an understanding of it. And that's why, we're not the best comics we can be now, because we're both in our 20s.
Yeah.
And there's not enough schmuck on us to scrape off and show people, There's only so much to show people right now. So a lot of what we're doing is kind of existing in a world of ideas, And like you had a wild childhood, I've had some experiences that I find interesting, but even still, everybody knows that experience is the most important thing, and they know that inherently, because even if you talk about having a crazy childhood, people will still go, well, you're 25.
Yeah.
Even though you lived it.
Yeah.
They'll still go, well, you're young.
Well, yeah,
because 45-year-old you still knows more than you.
Absolutely. Yeah. I've noticed dating older women that no matter no matter how much like more shit I've been through, they still have a more mature understanding of the world.
They still know more. And
yes.
The most you can get from having a big understanding is them saying, "Oh, it's surprising you think that way."
Mm-hmm.
You know, the most you can get is a little pat on the back of affirmation of like, you have a somewhat elevated understanding for your age. But even them, they're still affirming that you're still in a world of ideas.
Yes,
where
and
it's like
they're
you
still
shouldn't.
also saying they're still also grooming you.
They're grooming you.
If you date anyone that's even a year older than you, they're grooming you.
You're being groomed. You need
I'm
to call
sorry.
the cops. You're in a dangerous situation.
They are a pedophile.
You're dating a pedophile. If you're dating somebody that's even 1 day older than you, you should wake up next to them every morning, look over and say, "You are a pedophile."
Yes.
You're attracted to younger people because you're sick, because you probably got fucked as a kid, because you're fucked up, you got a terrible life, and you're trying to exert it on me. All I am is a punching bag with your pussy.
And I mean, that's the realest shit this podcast has ever said.
Yeah. So anyway, keep it real.
Keep it real. Check out Cooper's album, South Central Trailer Trash. It'll be releasing next month, I think, December 17th. It's an important day for you, right?
Yeah, December 20th.
Yeah.
And it'll be releasing December 17th.
Okay.
I lie like a motherfucker.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. You're not going to know when it's coming out because I don't care.
All right. Well, I'll fucking kill every single one of you that's watching.
Yeah, kill yourself,
fuck you,
get fucked, and
fuck
die
you,
quick.
fuck you.
Yeah, die quick.